to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. Happy New Year, and before you guys know it, it's going to be the start of a brand new Philadelphia Union season here in 2024. Who would have thought that feels like just yesterday the Union were knocked out of the playoffs by FC Cincinnati, and couple days, the Union are going to be reporting at Subaru Park, and I'm sure going through all their testing. And before you know it, then they're going to be flying down to Florida for preseason. And you know what you guys are going to do on social media? You guys are going to complain that we cannot watch preseason games. It's exactly what you guys are going to do. But I don't know. Maybe Apple's going to decide we're going to produce preseason games this season, and maybe we get preseason games. You never know. But I told you guys last episode, right? The very, very last episode we would do before we head out to California for the United Soccer Coaches Convention, we're going to bring on a guest. And that guest is none other than Jose Nunez. Jose, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I appreciate you opening the door for me to come and chat with you for whatever long this goes. I know you and I sort of chatted in the background in terms of the length for this, and knowing how chatty I get and whatnot, hopefully it's not too long, but ultimately feeling better, man. I did not expect to test positive for COVID on Christmas night. So this week has been very, very long, but luckily on the upside. But like you're saying, I'm really excited for the season to kick off again. It's coming fast.
Are you really? Because I mean, that can be the first talking point that we get into, right? I was thinking about this last night when I was driving back from hanging out with Kyle and Jillian on New Year's Eve up in Lancaster. And that car ride back at 1 o'clock in the morning gets super lonely. And so what do? I usually throw on some music or I'll listen to podcasts, and my brain goes a million miles an hour. And I was thinking, I was like, 2023... I was saying to myself, 2023, I'm sure was great for a lot of people and it was crappy for a lot of people. There is no in between. And for the people that had a sucky 2023, hopefully 2024 is better. People that had a good 2023, hopefully 2024 stays the same. But I was just thinking about the season as a whole. And as much as I complained about Leagues Cup, this is where my brain went last night. As much as I complained about Leagues Cup, I was like, man, I miss this, like going up to the stadium every week. Even though the drives suck, going up there twice a week and you're getting home super late, I'm like, I miss this. And I don't know if we're going to get that again next year, right? Just seeing the Union finish in fourth place. So they're not guaranteed to host every single game if they go farther in Leagues Cup. And I'm still not a fan of Leagues Cup, or not a huge fan of Leagues Cup. But yeah, I mean, just going up to Subaru Park every week, like that becomes your life, and you start to miss it.
You do. I apologize. I was trying to unmute. I have my almost 4-year-old son here eating cookies and asking for snacks because he knows that right now I'm a weak man in terms of A, getting better, but B, knowing that I'm recording. But you know what? You're right. I do remember thinking about all those drives. I remember thinking about, leaving the stadium at 11 o'clock and then getting home at midnight if we're lucky and no traffic whatsoever. But 2023 was an interesting year for me in terms of evolving, I guess, in a way, right? Like in terms of me starting to cover the team, and then Leagues Cup really, being one of the few people who spoke Spanish in that press room and really helping everybody out in terms of like, what did the coach say, or what did the player say, or what did you ask him? But ultimately, it's tough, right? Because it just ended. And we're going from 0 to 100. And to your point in the intro, Todd, I do wonder if there are plans. And if there are, I guess they would have to be announced soon in terms of broadcasting some of these games. Because I'm thinking to myself, what an easy way for Apple to get more content on the platform that they charge money for, that I can't imagine will be as cheap as it is for too long. Obviously, we're fortunate. I'm a season ticket holder. You're a season ticket holder. So we get logins. I'm also a T-Mobile user, so I have that login as well. But whatever it is now, like $6 a month, $7 a month for MLS season pass, I can't even remember, is money. So I'd be intrigued to see if they actually broadcast the preseason games, because I think we've all wondered about those.
Yeah, a lot of people have. And it's like, I know the team tries their best to tweet out and you're constantly refreshing the website, like, all right, where's an update? There hasn't been an update in 10 minutes. All right, 15 minutes I went by. Where's the update? And it's like, people get so impatient. And, I'm one of these people, I'm getting on people in the intro and everything like, oh, you guys are going to complain. I'm going to be one of the people complaining too. So I'm not going to shy away from that. It's just, you know, when this becomes your life and, we're so used to watching baseball games in preseason broadcasted on TV, NFL games broadcasted. And when you cover this team, and especially like you and I, right? Midweek press conferences, it's like, what the hell are you supposed to ask Jim Curtin about if you can't watch the game? So it's like and I'm not going down to Florida. You're probably not going down to Florida. And there's only one person that I know that goes yearly down to Florida. So it's like, okay, nobody really gets to see these guys in practice. So it's like, what do you ask about? And so it's like, you go off of whatever Jim's telling you and you try to formulate a question that way. But hopefully we do get some preseason games this season, but I would not bet on it. But we'll see. Maybe we'll be surprised.
Though, Todd, aren't they? Some Western teams are getting together for Goldcello or whatever it's called, which I think is sort of like a coalition of 4 or 5 teams that are just having matches for like 2 weeks or so. So I figure that those are being broadcasted. I think I'll have to look into it, but I know that's something that's happening with Western Conference teams. I wonder if East Coast teams. I mean, we heard it when, and thank you again for you jumping on with my conversation with Tesho and Amobi Akugo. But if you recall Tesho's story, where like he was at the Colorado School of Mines, played a friendly against, was it Salt Lake? The Rapids, sorry. And the coach remembered him. The coach moved on to Dallas. The coach went ahead and drafted Tesho because of that match where he scored 2 goals or whatever. So for us as people who follow this team and report on it, how great would it be to learn those stories early on rather than to be in the shadows because no one can take a camera and point it at the soccer ball as it's moving. It would be a shame, and it would be awesome to have that, especially if, all of these facilities that they go to in Florida have a elevated surface where somebody can literally just put a camera in and point. But again, we're just idea people. We're not the ones actually executing. So that's the difference. But I would absolutely love it. And I know it would consume me very, 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 very early on to watch these matches.
Man, and they don't even need a camera person because of the technology. I mean, VO cam, all you have to do is just put up the VO cam and that tracks the ball movement. Like, I'm sure there's a way to broadcast that and you're good to go. And Jim Curtin, I mean, he's told us plenty of times, he's like, I don't care about giving away my coaching ideas. Like, I have nothing to hide. He wants to help people get better. So if you want to watch the Union's tape, then so be it. Now, maybe early on in preseason, then maybe you feel a little bit differently about that if you're Jim Curtin. But like, Jim's never been one to shy away of inviting the press to practice, sharing his ideas, what he's seeing. And I remember very early on last season, again, can't watch these games, but Jim Curtin was speaking the praises of Jesus Bueno, saying how he came into preseason very, very fit, very sharp, came in there early, just getting in early work. He was performing well, Jim was saying, in those preseason games. And so from right there, you had a feeling that, okay, Jesus Bueno is maybe on the verge of having a breakout season. And early on in the season, he wasn't getting those starts. And some questions maybe started getting asked. Well, you were hyping up Jesus in the offseason and he still can't get into this lineup. What's up with that? And Jim's basically like, he's buying his time. And then a League Cup, not only was that a breakout for you, I feel like it was for Jesus Bueno too. So, the 2 and 2 go together there. And the rest is history there with Jesus Bueno. But again, just going back to my earlier point, 2023, just really grateful for like all the traveling that I got to do, going out to Colorado, going up to New York Red Bulls with Jillian and Kyle, going
your
down
girlfriend?
to DC. Yeah, no, Shelby didn't actually go to New York Red Bulls or DC. The only away game she went to this year was Colorado. Yeah, so
it was Colorado. And for the record, for everybody listening, Shelby is his sister, Mike Barrera, who probably listens to this from time to time, made the awful mistake of confusing Shelby for Todd's girlfriend, which is unbelievable. Crack me up.
Oh, I think people know that because as soon as he said that, he got blunder of the week on the episode. So, yeah, I think people are very well aware. But the crazy thing is, too, not only did Mike think this, other people did, too. I'm like, what the heck? Like, people tell us all the time we look so much alike, but
And that's just it. I think you guys look very much alike. That to me, there's no confusing that unless there's some like weird fetish you're into dating someone who looks just like you.
yeah, we're not Amish. Like, come on now. I mean, it's crazy. Just people like, don't make me give you blunder of the week again, just assuming. But yeah, I mean, just going all to the away games down to DC, like I was saying with you and Skylar, that was a blast doing that. Nah, we won't put them on blast, but some little hiccups there trying to get down there, and eventually got it all worked out. Hopefully, no hiccups this year in 2024. It's still living rent free in my mind. It's like, come on, how's this happen? But
Never mind the what was it, $70 parking right outside of the DC stadium, which is
dude.
unbelievable for a small 4-wheel vehicle. Like it's not like you rolled in with a 30-person bus.
No, I know. And it's crazy too. The people we talk to, Union fans, are like, yeah, we ran in a 15-passenger van. Everybody split the cost. They parked in the same lot as we did. And it's like, maybe we should do that. Just get a whole group of journalists down there or something, or fans, and be like, all right, $5 to park here. And you have very cheap parking. But just all the away games was great. It's a shame that we didn't get as many playoff games this season as we did the previous year, but I think maybe Leagues Cup offsets that, and I'm just like really grateful for the season that all of us had really covering this team. And I was thinking too, it's like nobody, all the content creators, all the people that are freelance, like nobody has an issue. Everybody's supporting each other. Everybody wants each other to be the best they possibly can, and it's rare, I feel like, when you see that in sports. And yeah, maybe there are some people that don't get along, don't like what others are doing, but I think for the most part, everybody's welcomed in that space. People are excited to see the other ideas brought to the table, and hopefully that continues in 2024. Hopefully people don't get too ahead of themselves, too big of an ego. Not naming names at all for people that are like, okay, who are you talking about? But yeah, I mean,
And that's
it's
just it though, Todd. You nailed it, right? And I just want to interject there for a second because it is true. Like we, as in the journalists that are sort of freelance, or honestly like myself and yourself, are just do it for free, for fun, as a hobby, right? We support each other. We help each other. I know I've shared notes with you, certainly, Kyle, Jillian, from time to time, some other folks, but that doesn't mean I'm not critical of some of their work. And obviously I share it when it makes sense with them specifically, not putting them on blast. But it's really cool to see because I think we've seen the evolution of the Philadelphia Union in terms of press corps, right? And where it was just a few to now that press room is just always so packed. It's awesome, right? And I think it was very apparent during Leagues Cup where, we got some incredible access, and maybe we're pulling the curtain a little bit here where as press folks for Leagues Cup, it was an interesting system in terms of Zoom. I don't even know what you call that. Almost like a big like conference type of thing where Todd, myself, and everybody who was registered to cover the team was actually able to enter the press conference of any team that was participating, both in the American side and the Mexican side. So if I wanted to go listen to Nashville before they played whoever, I could. If I wanted to go into the post-game conference after that game, I could. So, man, that consumed my life. And that type of access was unbelievable. And I hope it repeats itself. And I actually would love it if it was like that for all of the MLS teams. Maybe there's a way to, the Philadelphia guys shouldn't be asking questions to a Seattle coach or player unless it absolutely makes sense. But man, that type of access was incredible. And I think really helped a lot of freelance folks to really start getting their name out there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, just watching, and sure you don't want the praise right here, but it's like, watching how much you blew up, and seeing like how much people appreciated that. And like, I appreciate that. And it's like, yeah, you can say we compete against each other, but I don't look at it like that at all. It's like, I have no problem helping Jose or whoever wants help. And likewise with them, where it's like, if you get a tip, you have no problems sharing in that. At least I don't. It's like, I'm not here to make money. Like you said, it's like, I'm here to give fans coverage. It's a hobby, and it's like, yeah, it would be nice to make money and everything. Like, nobody's going to complain about that. But it's like, I never started the podcast to make money. And so I think there are a lot of people in that press box that feel the same way. I hope I'm not speaking for people. I don't think I am. At least that's the way that they come across. Nobody steps on each other's toes. Nobody's jealous. Nobody's, in your face. Yeah, I mean, so just like getting close with you and Mike this year, getting closer with like Kyle and Jillian, Skylar, just building those relationships, Greg. Yeah, it's really, really cool to see. And yeah, hopefully that continues in 2024. But I have no more thoughts on 2023 as a whole. I mean, yeah, we both probably would have hoped that the Union could have went farther, would have won MLS Cup, won a trophy at least this season. But it was always going to be a tough ass playing 51 games. And when you get little to no rotation, which seems to be what everybody complains about every single year, you end up in the situation that you end up in. But there's been some MLS news this past week. Transfer window just opened January 1st. And Jose, I'm sure you see it on social media all the time. Just fans of the Union complaining, oh, why haven't we signed X and X player yet? Why haven't we signed a well-established player? And I keep going back to the press conference that Jim and Ernst had at the end of the season, where my big takeaway was development. And we've seen all young players so far sign. Isaiah, Nick, I forget the other guy's name. This is so bad. The Dutch, is he Dutch?
Navo or whatever is Ngabo. I don't know how you say his name. I apologize, but no, I know who you're talking about because he was actually signed before the season ended. He was signed during the postseason, if I recall. And I think you're right, Todd. Having been at that press conference and when that comment came out of Ernst's mouth, I'm thinking to myself,
Sanders.
Okay,
that's what it was.
Thank you, Sanders. Is it Ngabo?
Yeah,
is that he?
Ngabo. Yep.
Thank you. It was so telling from there, and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, so far we're following along, or the team is following along with what Ernst said, which is development. Nick Pariano, who actually was just out last night with a whole bunch of ex-Union Academy / current Union Academy / collegiate players for a gigantic gathering, eating pizza in Medford with the Aronson brothers, which is cool. But ultimately, like, Ernst is doing what he said. So, like, I'm not sure what they expected. It's not like the Union were going to trade Gam and whatever to shit. I don't know. Like,
LA Galaxy, trying to get Tyler Boyd. Yeah, right.
They're not going to go get Tyler Boyd. They're not going to trade Gam and the next 10 years worth of their equity to get Ricky Puy. They're not making moves like that. They're doing what the Union do, which is at this point very predictable, but it works for them. I mean, Jim touts that line left and right, Todd, and we hear it all the time. We've been the best team over the last 5 years in terms of cumulative points. Well, something's working. So why steer clear from it? Obviously, it's not yielding a lot of silverware. It's helping overall continental rankings. But beyond that, it's doing well. It's just interesting. And I don't think that, most windows opening tomorrow, I think it's Spain and Italy that finally open. I don't see a whole lot of incoming from international. Probably more exits than anything to the international market in terms of Carranza, and maybe some other faces. And obviously, we would be foolish not to state the obvious, but Kai Wagner and Alejandro Bedoya are no longer Union players as of last night, December 31st at midnight. They are clear free agents. They have no attachment to MLS whatsoever outside of if they received a bona fide offer. Actually, no, not even then, because they're 24 and older with 5 or more years of service. So they are literally off the hook. They're not owned by anybody. They can do whatever they want. So, and they could have already, but just to be super transparent on that front too.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the Union's website right here, and they have not updated it yet. So people might go on here and see Kai Wagner and Alejandro Bedoya still, and they're like, oh, They're still a part of the team. No, they are not. Their contracts are officially done with the Union. They are officially free agents. And the one thing that I do wonder about is looking at the Union's website. Ty Baribo, international slot. Jesus Bueno, international slot. Daniel Gazdag, international spot. Macania, international spot. Jose Martinez, international spot. Richard Adada, international spot. Joaquin Torres, international spot. Mikel Uwa, international spot. So there's 9 players right there for 8 slots. So right now, the Union are currently over, although Richard Adada is out on loan. So I thought that would still take up a spot. Maybe it doesn't. So maybe the Union are fine. But regardless, like, if you expect this team to go out and sign international players, they're going to have to trade for international spots within MLS to get these players within the MLS guidelines. Now, that's not to say that somebody like Jesus Bueno or Jose Martinez or Daniel Gazdag, who's been here for 3 years now, going on 3 years now, couldn't get a green card. But, as things stand right now, there's 9 players that are taking up 8 international spots, and the Union are going to have to find a way to trade for more slots if they want to get more international players in here. Saunders, who's not listed on this website, surely takes up an international spot. So, look, even if Richard Adada doesn't take an international spot, now there's 9. So if Richard Adada is still, even though he's on loan, taking up a spot, you're at 10. What if the Union can find a way to get Jose Riasco's rights, which Ernst Tanner again told us at the end of the season that, yeah, apparently, even though the Union have him signed to Union too, the Union would love to sign him to a first-team contract, but another team in MLS has those rights. So it's like the Union do have some work to do if they want to get international players in here. And I think, people that are just casual Union fans, they don't think about that stuff. And you can safely assume that Ernst Tanner is well aware of this issue with the Union. And it's like, you've got to find ways to open up slots, or if not, you're going to go and make trades. And we can see how expensive GAM goes. I mean, Nashville is just giving away GAM, their international spots left and right, and that costs a significant amount of GAM.
Yeah, I do have 2 questions. Macania, is he also a U22 project or whatever you call it, U22 designation?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that goes to another point of what this team needs to maybe think about. And, having talked to sources in the leading into Don Garber's changes that were, his whole spiel about the changes that were coming, which at first he said they were going to be very exciting, but then ended up being, sure, more money, I think more TAM or whatever it was to basically pay for a whole new player. Then you have the additional yearly increases in terms of budget caps that basically brought I think another $200,000 worth of space for teams to spend. That person that spoke to me in terms of what to expect was really pushing that the MLS still doesn't believe that teams are taking the U22 initiative very, very seriously. And I would say that the Union are one of them, unfortunately. And I hate to be the Debbie Downer in the room, but I just don't know where the Union get off in terms of using a U22 spot like someone like Macania, who I'm sure is a wonderful individual, wonderful person, but he is not a Union, starting caliber person. When you see players like Thiago Almada, who is a U22 initiative player, who is about to probably leave the country for a lot of money. So I really do wish that teams took that initiative a little bit better. Because right now, who's taking up those spots besides Macania? In fact, they only have 2 because they're using all 3 regular DPs and that little mechanism. So in order to have 3, you only have to use 2 regular DPs. Who's the second U22 right now? Do you remember off the top of your head? Nobody. So they have a U22 spot. It would be wonderful to see. And I know it's a foolish errand, to think that the Union would spend money, but shell out money for a very good, promising talent in South America or Europe and tag them with U22, basically a 4th DP. That would be awesome, but not going to happen. Unfortunately, I just don't see how that happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly where my mind went too. It's like, go to South America. There's a ton of talent, a ton of untapped talent. I mean, look, Man City just signed a guy from Argentina for, I think, $26 million. And Thiago Almada's, you hear numbers that Atlanta want 30 million plus. And here's a guy who's won. I know didn't play at the World Cup, but he was on the roster. I think that speaks highly of what that federation thinks of him. Had a fantastic season with Atlanta United. Continues to get called up to the Argentina national team. For a player that's a lot more established than the player that Man City just got, and excuse me for not knowing the player's name right now, but
I'll say it. Marco, wasn't it Echeverri from River Plate?
There you go. Yeah, 26 million for him, and he's only been in Argentina, I believe. Why couldn't Atlanta United get 30 million plus? And so I don't blame them for holding out for that when, it's got to be the right team that can spend that. And I think he's a very talented player. A team should. And, just going back to that, I mean, look at all the players that Inter Miami just signed, and they continue to be linked with young South American players. It's like, or Julian Carranza. You look no further than Julian Carranza. Look how much he's raised his stock the last two seasons with the Union. He went for a little bit over $6 million from Inter Miami. The Union give funny money, GAM, and everything. I believe Inter Miami have a sell-on clause. I forget what that number is, 25%, I want to say. Maybe that's a little too high, but they do have a sell-on clause when the Union sell Julian, so some money will be going back into Miami, which, makes sense because he's paid a significant amount of money for Julian. But look, here's a player the Union would have never paid 6, 7, 8 million for, and they get him for funny money. And you could see the case where the Union get 10 plus million, maybe not 10 million up front, maybe some incentives in there, but here's a player in Argentina that's going to bring the Union some significant money. And I know fans are like, well, he's still a part of the team. We haven't seen anything with Julian Carranza. He'll be sold. Like, I don't think Ernst Tanner would be dumb enough to let that contract run down the last 6 months in the summertime. I mean, look, he told us he had plenty of offers he could have accepted in the summertime, but they wanted to keep this team together, go for it. They fall short. I don't see why teams wouldn't come back to the Union for Julian Carranza here in the wintertime, especially, if you're a team that's fighting relegation, you need a goal scorer. Teams pay stupid money for a striker to try to save them from getting relegated.
Yeah, and Todd, if you circle back, and I hate to circle back on my own work, but if you circle back to when I spoke with him over the summer, and I asked them multiple questions about his ambitions in terms of going to Europe or going back to South America, what do you want to do? He was very clear and the way he spoke and in his tone, I guess. And I hate to read too much into it, but you kind of have to because that's what we have to work with. But very open to the idea of like, it's my time to move. It's always my dream to go to Europe, to go somewhere else, to do this, to do that. So I think I agree with you. Actually, I know I agree with you. I don't see a world where when's the first game? February 20th, right? It's at Costa Rica, against Saprissa.
Yeah.
I don't see we see Julian Carranza. In fact, I'm willing to put a good chunk of change that Julian Carranza will not be part of most, if not any, of the preseason. I would probably go ahead and guess, based on timing, that there's probably something already in the books and it just hasn't been announced because they were waiting for January 1 to open. So it's intriguing, or January 2nd, wherever he goes. It'll be really intriguing to see where he lands, but I just don't think that we will ever see Julian Carranza at Subaru Park again.
So let me ask you this question. So it was all assumed that the Union bring in Ty Baribo to eventually replace Julian Carranza, and he barely plays last season. And so that leads to questions, well, did the Union go back out for another striker? And so that's my question to you. Do you believe that the Union go out to find another striker? Me personally, I do. Do I expect it to be a DP striker? Not necessarily, because the Union, I believe, are paying Ty Baribo a significant amount of money. I'll look it up right here. But it's like, yes, you want the Union are paying a base salary of $600,000, a guaranteed of $710,000. So that's a significant amount of money to leave that kind of player on the bench. And so I do think that Ty is going to be given every single chance to earn that starting spot. But I don't think the Union, if or I should say when the Union sell Julian Carranza. I don't think the Union will go out there and sign another DP. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I don't see that. Do you think the Union are going out there and sign another striker once Julian's gone?
I guess I want to just get two things out of the way to lead into this conversation, right? One, Kamara is never coming to the Union. I know there's a lot of people who are like, oh, it's a free agent. He's a mercenary. We know that. He's never coming to the Union. All right. So let's just get that out of the way, because I always see that little bit of hope from some people of like, let's get a senior player who has done it across the league and has done well. The Union don't play that game, and they're not going to go out for him and get him as a free agent like that, or whatever situation he's in. Second, I want to be mindful of criticism for Ty, and I've done it myself. But taking a step back now in the offseason and maybe being more informed, I wonder, and I know Jim's thoughts on Ty, and I hate to call him excuses, but Jim's reasoning for Ty not playing as much was that of fitness. And you've been in that room when Jim has mentioned fitness being the issue, getting up to speed. When he joined the Union, it was technically the offseason for him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But let's also not lose sight that everything that's going on with Ty in his country, his national country, his where he was born, in terms of Israel. And I'm not here to have you choose a side or whatever. That's not the conversation we're having. But taking a step back and thinking about the human side of what maybe is weighing in his head and on his shoulders in terms of what's going on in the world. Maybe his family's in a bad situation in Israel. We don't know any of that. And almost like everything that was going on in Ukraine with a lot of the Ukrainian national players that were playing across Europe and had to take a couple of days off, a couple of matches and not play because of everything going on. So just want to say that about Ty. Now, in terms of the conversation or the question you asked, I don't see how or where the Union find a wherewithal to find a replacement for someone like Julian Carranza, at least not of that caliber. A lot of Julian's work or good, yes, it's from scoring goals. Yes, it's from assisting and movement, but it's from the pressure he brings, right? And that doesn't show up on stat sheets. So I just don't know where the Union would find someone like him without shelling out a ton of money. But I also do believe that this team can't get away with the quantity and density of matches that are coming up. Potentially a repeat of the 51, if not more, if they go beyond one match if they were to repeat everything they did last year and add one more match, US Open, if that even happens for MLS teams, 52, 53, maybe even more, 54, 55, if they go far into it. I just don't think that they can get away with what they have in terms of, attacking threats. So I don't see where to go and find one. And I think it's also obvious, Todd, that having asked Jim and Ernst, myself, at that press conference, the end of season one, their feelings in terms of intra-league trades, they don't seem very interested, because if they were, they would have done something by now, I would think, or maybe they're heavy at work at it and something's coming soon. Maybe I need to be more fair, because around this time, or maybe in the next couple of weeks, is when Joaquin Torres would have landed mid preseason, if I recall. So there could be a chance. I just don't know what they go after at this point in terms of intra-league, and obviously maybe doing a lot of intra-league trading last year and seeing how it turned out left a sour taste in their mouth in terms of that mechanism. So I don't know, a lot of depth needed, and I hope that the young players that they drafted and brought in so far, with the Houston Dynamo 2 guy, Padiano, I already forgot his name, Ngabo, Sanders, yeah. And then I don't think Bohane comes to the team. I think he's going to go back to Stanford. And the other two, Stas has to come to the team, probably Union too. I'm not even sure that the goalkeeper is going to get a contract offer. Who knows? All of those names, I just don't think that they are Philadelphia Union starting 11 or first 16 type of quality. But who the heck am I to say? I'm just a schlub in front of a microphone.
Yes, we both are, right? And Speaking of goalkeeper not coming to the team, John McCarthy, unfortunately not coming to the Philadelphia Union. He's decided to sign with LA Galaxy, staying out in LA. It's disappointing. The Union would have loved to have had John back, I can imagine. A goalkeeper that, unfortunately, we all know, beat them in a penalty shootout. But I think, John's just such a different goalkeeper than he was when he was back in Philadelphia back in, what was it, 2015, I believe it was, when he was playing with the club. And he's had stints at Inter Miami with LAFC, now with LA Galaxy, where you can imagine he's probably going to push Bond for the starting spot. And it's sad, right? Because Andre Blake could miss up to, I think, 8 games, something like that, an absurd amount of games. And the Union obviously didn't feel comfortable with Joe Bendik coming back next season. That's why they were in the market. And it's kind of scary to think, right? If John McCarthy was the Union's number one target, not, of course, like Ernst Tenner is going to have options B, C, all that stuff. It's like, yeah, you can have your number one option, but you got to figure that John McCarthy going to the Union was definitely on their minds. The Union were probably thinking about that. Get a local guy in, and now it's like, okay, well, we can't see the future. It's like you start to panic a little bit with Holden Trent, with Andrew Rick. Could he potentially get a first team contract and be the number 2? I mean, you do start to panic a little bit, and maybe you have to circle back and get Joe Bendik because all your options fell through. And the one thing the Union, I can guarantee you, the Union do not do is they won't sign a goalkeeper like they did a few years ago with Carlos Cannell taking up an international spot. They won't do that again. Absolutely not.
No, and you're right. I do wonder. I've been told that the Union were finalists in the decision for McCarthy. How true that is, I'm not sure. I would believe it. I think if you think beyond the rectangle that is the soccer field, McCarthy was making 120 in LA, which means 30-some% tax rate. So he was taking home less than $100,000 probably after taxes living in LA. Sure, he doesn't have student loans like you and I, or like me, I should say. He doesn't have X, Y, or Z. So like it's a little bit easier that way, but that's still a very tough salary, I think, in MLS for a player, especially in a city like Los Angeles. That coming to the East Coast would have been awesome for him, I would think, financially. So I'm intrigued for when the salary guide comes out to see what McCarthy got in terms of a pay raise, because going from 120 in LA to whatever again in LA, I wonder what he got, but it would have gone a heck of a lot further in Pennsylvania. But I'm guessing that a lot of it has to do in terms of the conversation of roles where you hit it. I think he's going to really push Bond for that spot. And I think Bond's on a $350K a year guaranteed. So he's making a nice chunk of change compared to McCarthy. And it's
even
clear
more
as day.
I'm looking at it now. Guaranteed compensation, $525,000 for Jonathan
There
Bond.
you go. $500,000 to be a goalkeeper for the LA Galaxy. So my guess is that when the guide comes out, McCarthy probably agreed to at least 200, 220. I'm really intrigued to see what he agreed to, getting a nice bump as a free agent, which, again, having that type of money in Pennsylvania is a lot better than being in Los Angeles, in California. But it would have been great to see him back. I just wonder now, are the Union going to roll the developmental card when Andre Blake is going to be missing as much as he is, or potentially as much as he is? I hope not, but I also wish that Holden Trent would not have broken his finger and we would have actually seen him instead of Joe Bendik, which, again, nothing against Joe. I'm sure he's a wonderful person. Incredible LinkedIn picture if you ever look him up. Unbelievable LinkedIn picture. But I wish we would know what Holden Trent's all about. And that's where, again, if we had streams for these preseason matches, I think we would really know what Holden Trent's about. But we probably won't.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And so, I mean, you trust the judgment of Phil Whetten and the rest of the coaches to know what they have in Holden Trent, know what they have in Andrew Rick. And I'll go back to my conversation last year at the convention with Phil Whetten about Andrew Rick. Very high on him. And after Andrew played a full season with Union 2, that's furthering his development. But again, it's like the Union, I'll go back to Brandon Craig, right? They realized that, okay, well, keeping Brandon Craig here playing with Union 2 is not going to help his development anymore. And I do wonder too, when does it get to a point where the Union decide, all right, Union 2 is not going to help Andrew Rick in his development, where the Union start to consider loans for him, and maybe if they get intrigued enough, buy an offer for somebody that wants to buy him. Do the Union consider that as well? So, I mean, goalkeeper is definitely a question mark on this team. Striker is a question mark on this team. I do want to stay with goalkeepers real quick. And so the whole reason John McCarthy isn't going back to LAFC is because LAFC have signed Hugo Lloris from Tottenham Hotspur. And the crazy thing is, he's making $350,000 after he was just making $5 million with Tottenham. And Jose did the work, right? Hugo Lloris is only making $350,000. Andre Blake's making 155% more than the French national team goalkeeper that won a World Cup, that's played in a Champions League final. Andre Blake's making more than that guy. And I think that raises a lot of questions. And again, going back to the PA guide, I'm sure we'll see it in the springtime, what the guaranteed comp is. I'm sure there's some incentives in this deal for Hugo Lloris. But when you look at that right away, $250,000 for Hugo Lloris, like, what the hell? Like, can anybody sign players like this for that low amount of money? It's crazy, right?
Yeah, I know a lot of people are up in arms about it. And to an extent, I agree, right? It's very striking that a player of that caliber, even at that age, is making that money, at least reportedly that money. So it has to be confirmed by the salary guide. So let's keep that in mind. But I'm thinking that there's probably some sort of gentleman's agreement, right? Because his contract is a 1 year guaranteed, which is he's going through, and 2 options, I believe. I wonder 2 things. On this guaranteed one, there could be some silly bonuses that don't technically qualify for the compensation immediately, right? They don't have to be reported because they're not guarantees, in terms of something like make 10 starts and you get $300,000. Like, that's silly shit. We can curse, right? Okay. That's silly shit. Or average 5 saves and you'll make whatever, $100,000. That's silly stuff again. But I wonder if next year there's already a gentleman's agreement in terms of you'll make $350K this year, but next year we guarantee you without signing it that you will be back and you'll be making $800,000, $900,000, $1 million. I don't know. I'm really interested to see what happens next year, but it also begs the question, right? Does LA really have the ability to leverage that city as well as it does, right? Is it the weather? Is it the popularity? Is it I don't know, like, what is it about Los Angeles that people love? And I say this as someone who hasn't been there. You're on your way,
Yeah.
right? So you'll have to tell us. But
I was going to say, you hear all these songs about artists talking about how you die in LA, how LA is just where careers go to die because of how expensive it is. It's this fairy tale land. You think, it's going to be all joyful and happy-go-lucky, but it really is like a city killer. I'd imagine we talked about John McCarthy, the amount of taxes he's paying living out there. It's like, I'm sure people go to LA with big dreams, big aspirations. And for a lot of people, it doesn't work out. And like, it looks great on TV. It's like, oh, LA, you're right near the beach. It stays fairly warm the whole season. And does LA have that kind of pool? I don't know. Maybe it does. So I'll definitely report back. But I think there's a reason why you see so many songs out there where people are talking about, yeah, you go out to LA and you die. Dreams, that's where they go and get crushed.
Well, Ugo is also, again, I hate to say being the adult in the room, but I don't see anybody actually reporting on this. And maybe I need to do a better job. But like, his take home is going to be like $220K.
Yeah.
So like, those are some heavy taxes. And granted, that's me and showing my work. I use the zip code where the stadium is, not necessarily where he might live. But my guess is that at that point, you're splitting hairs in terms of what type of money he's got, and that's before paying his agent. That's before paying the union. So like, it's a good bit of money. So I wonder what that deal looks like, and man, to be a fly on the walls for these conversations when these thoughts start, right? Like, who in LA thought, you know what, that guy's just sitting idle? Like, why don't we have one of those people sitting at the Philadelphia Union thinking, Eric Dyer, he's just sitting in Hotspurs doing nothing. We could use a midfielder, right? Get him at a crazy discount, show him how beautiful Chester, Pennsylvania is, and bring him to the Union, right? So I really do hope that one day I'm able to talk to somebody who can shed light onto how does a player of that caliber go from a thought to a process to an offer to a reality. Because I'm so intrigued onto how that all works to get someone like a World Cup winner, international star, to come to Los Angeles or to come to any one of these MLS teams. I am so intrigued to hear how that all works. But listen, best of luck to LAFC. They're gonna be making some moves. I think they just lost the Palacios guy, their left back. I think he just signed away to South America, I think. So they got some work to do. I think he was a free agent.
Yeah, he was.
So I think it was reported that he's out of contention for them. So they have a big hole to fill there.
Dang, that's a huge loss. I thought he was one of the best left backs between him and Kai Wagner, and both of them could potentially be out of MLS now. And so the left back market goes from, all right, this seems to be, you can see who your top 1 and 2 are, and now it's like Jordi Alba. Is that it? a 35, 36-year-old Jordi Alba. Is that all we have now again for left backs in MLS? But the last bit of news I want to talk about, because this offseason, it's not been a lot to talk about. So Jose and I, we're just spitballing. Is Olivier Mbaizo not getting caught up to Cameroon's African Cup of Nations squad? And in all honesty, I'm not shocked by this at all. Where you look, the amount of times that he gets called up to the national team, how many times is he really playing? He's hardly ever playing. And I'm looking at him and Nate Harriel's season. They pretty much split 50-50. Nate played in 39 games, playing 2,716 minutes in all competitions. Mbaizo played in 34 matches this season, playing 2,628 minutes. And Nate Harriel, I would say, won the right back spot, in my opinion. I thought Nate looked a lot better than Olivier Mbaizo did. And
scored.
And scored, 4 goals compared to 0 for Olivier. I mean, if you want to count a penalty, even though it doesn't go in your official stat sheets in the League's Cup, Olivier scored against DC, maybe it was. I forget who. But, I think this season we just saw Nate Harriel take every opportunity given to him. And yes, Nate had some moments this season where, it was like, oh, what are you doing, dude? But for more times than not, I think he was a lot more reliable than Olivier Mbaizo. And last night, sitting in the bar with Guy and Jillian, I was like, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to look up the moment that Olivier Mbaizo and Paxton Aronson did not track the throw-in against LAFC. And I'm like, this is why you're not getting called up to the national team in important games, because I feel like in the biggest moments, Olivier Mbaizo just shuts off. And we heard Jim say this, I believe, earlier in the season. There's a lot of 9 out of 10 out of 10 performances from Olivier. Well, not a lot. There are some. But a lot of times it's 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10s, and it's getting those 9 out of 10s, 10 out of 10s, becoming more consistent. But I don't think that's the case with Olivier, and for whatever reason, it's not like this just happens to him. A lot of professional athletes, brain shut off in big moments. They have blunders, and that's why there's sports psychologists to get you over those situations. And I'm sure fans are going to say, well, don't forget about the moment against New York City and Talis Magno scored in the COVID game. Yes, we all remember that too. And, we remember those moments. You don't think that the national team remembers those moments? And I just want to be clear that there isn't anybody running away with the right back spot for the Cameroon national team. And Olivier Mbaizo can't get caught up. I think that tells you how little that they value him. And Jim Curtin says, teams in Ligue 1 in France are interested in Olivier Mbaizo. I don't know how much I believe that, honestly, because if I'm being honest, maybe Olivier can go and play in a second division. Maybe he can play in a lower European league, but playing in a top 5 league, absolutely not. And I do question, how many teams in MLS would Olivier Mbaizo walk into that starting lineup? And I don't want to use this as an episode to dunk on Olivier Mbaizo, and I know that's exactly what I'm doing, but it's like there's a reason he didn't get caught up to the national team for this huge tournament in Africa. And it's because of these moments that he just shuts off.
Well, let's also not forget about, in terms of Nate, let's not forget Gustavo Bo putting him on ice skates during the playoffs this postseason. That was
him and Jack Elliott both, yeah.
Yeah, both of them on ice skates, and I think when we were in the press room, actually, giving out interviews or answering questions, I should say, Jim walks by and he's like, "Don't forget to ask him how he gave up that goal." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh shit, the coach just called you out loud in front." And granted, they won, so that helped. Yeah. But ultimately, and they won big, but it still didn't matter this offseason because it only counted as one versus, an aggregate goal or anything like that. So I in terms of Mbaizo, I do wonder. And I think, again, taking a step back and thinking about life bigger than soccer, right? Like, does it make sense for him to come back if, as we as press members have heard for a couple of seasons now, where Mbaizo's family's having a hard time getting into the country, right? Does it make sense for him mentally to stay in the United States? I don't know. To your other question, where does he walk in and start right away? I don't know. And that's the difficult thing, right? Like, where could he go and start? It's not going to be Colorado because that's where Keegan Rosenberry is. So, like, where is he going to go? I don't know. So I do think that Nate has done an incredible job, like you outlined, in terms of taking up the opportunities that were given to him and through Leagues Cup. And again, we keep on going back to Leagues Cup and your disdain for it, but think about the moments and the minutes that it gave players to show us, press and fans, like what these players are truly like, where if we only had a 34 match season plus the 4 CCL, now CCC games, maybe 2 Open Cup games, 7 more matches to see some of these names shine. Yeah, it's good, but I don't think that they can afford to lose another player like that, right? Like an Olivier Mbaizo caliber. Like, what an incredible problem it is that Nate Harriel and Olivier Mbaizo are both interchangeable and good enough to start for this team when you have 51, if they replicate last year, 51 matches to play, right? What a wonderful problem. In terms of the international call-up, I actually was hoping that he would be called. I wonder if a preseason, which this is exactly where the African Cup of Nations would land, if the preseason training with the national team would be a great way to shake his career up a little bit in terms of getting ready with them, hopefully playing some games, being part of a national team camp with players who are supposed to be of higher caliber than a club team, are out there competing and practicing with one another and other teams. Maybe that was going to be a good change for him. And ultimately, just how poorly the World Cup went for him this past winter, last 2 winters ago, technically, now in 2022. I wish he would have had a redemption tour in terms of that national team call up. And listen, there's still an opportunity, right? Injuries can happen, issues, craziness can happen, whatever. Maybe he gets called up, but at this point, it just seems so unlikely that I wonder if his future is also accounted for. And I really wish we had, even if it was like 15 minutes or the ability to submit questions for the union staff to answer, because I would want to ask right now, like, what is the situation, if they can share, with Mbaizo's family? Were they able to figure out? Did they get it? They get the right lawyer to get the documents that they need to be in the country with them? Because that's probably what I would want answered first, and soccer second, especially with him. So, because I can't fathom playing for as long as they do and not being able to see my family, especially if myself, two kids and a wonderful wife. I can't imagine being that far away for that long.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of reminds me of the situation with Jameer Montero, right? You hear reports that his family can't get into the country, and you're like, okay, well then the Union are probably going to sell Jameer Montero overseas. That's not what they do at all. They send him out west, and San Jose has no issue getting his family into the country, which is also weird to me. It's like, how can some teams be better at getting visas secured for their players than other teams? It's so weird. One team that has
I know
no issue
how.
with that is Inter Miami.
I know how, and it is, and I always joke about this, but it's true. When I was working at Mercersburg Academy, which is a boarding school in South Central PA, I think like 60% of the student population is international. So a lot of vibrant communities within the one bigger community, which meant that we also had some parents who were and alums who were of very high stature. This is a high school where you pay $70,000 a year, so it's definitely like an interesting cohort of people. But a colleague of mine, her name's Justine, her husband Matias, who's from Chile, was having a heck of a time, like in Mbaizo, getting his paperwork to be able to come and live with her, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Lo and behold, she got in touch with one of the parents of her student, who was this incredible lawyer out of Miami, and was able to, I hate to say snap his fingers, but within 2 months, got all of the paperwork that Matias needed done, compared to the last, whatever, I think he had gone for like 10 or 11 months worth of trying. He did it in 2 months. So I think it really becomes a situation of like, do you know the right lawyers? Because it should not be that hard. So, and obviously there's a lot of other different factors, like, Chile's also seen by the government as a less of a threat than, Cameroon, an African nation. And, I'm not here to play politics, but that's just the way it is. So different factors there, but I think it really is a lawyer type of situation. And I hope that the union are able to figure it out, because it does seem like that's a recurring issue in terms of getting paperwork done, or just being unsuccessful to get paperwork done, period. I really hope that they figure that out.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And maybe the union, gotta send all their trouble players down to Miami, and all teams send your players down to Miami. Their families have an issue getting into the country. The lawyers down in Miami, they'll take care of that for you. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to discuss. All I have to say with a slow off season. So I'm glad that honestly, and for people like that aren't aware, like Jose and I literally, I did not tell Jose at all what we were going to talk about, and I really didn't know what I was going to talk about either. It's like, let's just go ahead and spitball this. So hopefully you guys had as much fun as Jose and I did talking about these different topics and getting your mind to turn. So, like I said at the beginning, this is the last episode of Nothing But Philadelphia Union Soccer Talk until after the United Soccer Coaches Convention in Anaheim. And if you guys haven't signed up yet, there is still time. You guys can still get that discount code. So don't miss your chance to join the most eagerly awaited soccer coaches event of the year. Get a special discount code with our exclusive promo code FreeKick24, and you will receive registration for $425. Experience the United Soccer Coaches Convention, an engaging 5-day gathering of the soccer coaching community featuring live full field demonstrations and enriching educational sessions. And the good thing is too, right? I've been teasing you guys the last couple episodes, like, oh man, you guys can't wait for the people that are announced on Media Row and United Soccer Conventions. They've finally announced the different shows that are going to be here, and I hope to have some of these people on here. So I'll go ahead and let you guys know. If you guys haven't checked out the website, you guys should definitely do that. If you guys want to go to the convention, Free Cake 24, like I just said. But we're going to have the Golasso show at the convention. I mean, that's, in my opinion, like the best thing, one of the best things to happen to soccer here in America, with the amount of different people they have on their shows, just how well informed they are. Everybody watches Champions League. Everybody loves, Thierry Henry. They love and Jamie
Lahoud.
Carragher. Yeah. Michael Richards. They love Kate Abdu. You have Clint Dempsey in there, Maurice Adu. I mean, CBS has
Charlie
been,
Davis, yeah.
Charlie Davis, Alexis Guerrero. CBS has been wonderful for soccer in this country. And so it's going to be really cool to have them at Media Row, I think they're calling it now, being able to rub elbows with those people. Jimmy Conrad, I think, is supposed to be out there. Would love to get Jimmy Conrad on the podcast. Alexi Lawless is going to be out there once again. Glenn Crooks, who's been on this podcast, he'll be out there with SiriusXM hosting his coaching academy. Would love to have Glenn back on. Eli Lester of This Week in MLS, which apparently I don't know if you saw this, Jose. He's not going to be doing This Week in MLS anymore, just because he doesn't want to limit himself to This Week in MLS. He doesn't want to limit himself to MLS. Of course, I'm going to be out there. Defenders of the Bank, which is a LAFC show, which I know none of you guys care about. Boo. The Corner of the Galaxy, which is the biggest LA Galaxy podcast. They're going to be out there. But, man, I'm just so excited to see. I think there's 29 shows that are going to be out there. They said this is their biggest media row, podcast row, whatever you want to call it now, they've ever had. So it's going to be awesome rubbing elbows with these people, trying to confirm guests. I know Kyle and Jillian have about 4 or 5 people already lined up for their show. Again, they're going out there with me. So it's going to be a blast out in LA. If you guys are on the fence, Free Cake 24 will get you a discounted code from January. I almost said January 7th. That's when I'm going out there, because spending some time in Disney. But it is January 10th through 13th. So
it's awesome that Javier Zanetti's going to be there. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's huge. Inter Milan legend, a huge deal.
Wow, it's incredible.
He wasn't on my list of potential guests, but you just say, can't walk up to him and be like, hey, you want to come on to the show? Look, Jim Curtin wasn't on the list of guests, and I walked up to Jim, and he's like, yeah, I don't know, I got to do something for the union. 10 minutes later, Jim's like, why didn't you text me? I said, because you said you had to do something with the union. Here comes Jim Curtin on my show, and all these people are looking like, is that Jim Curtin? How the hell did you get him? Well, I guess with my stupid stats and analytical questions, I guess Jim Curtin recognizes who I am. So,
Oh my goodness. If anything, that I'm guessing his, I don't know what he was wearing. My guess is dunks and some sort of like trendy jacket. Probably gave him away, right? Gigantic curly haired man walking around. Yeah, and I'm sure. Listen, if anything, we should just be so thankful as union reporters, but also union fans, of how he gets it, right? Like, he knows that this relationship is like, if he gives, the growth of this league depends on the access that he and the team provides to folks like us. So like he gets it. So for him to have it or really make the effort or the gesture to come and hop on with you on that podcast, like, that's unbelievable. You couldn't ask for a better person to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the United Soccer Coaches Convention out in Anaheim from January 10th through 14th. Going to be a blast. And so I cannot wait to record those episodes. You guys seem to enjoy all the episodes last year. And Jose, for people that, haven't been paying attention to what you've been doing, you've been busy this offseason. And for people that want to check out your content that you post out on Twitter, you post on your YouTube page, where can people find all that?
Yeah, no, thank you, Todd. I've been busy and some cool stuff coming down the line. I think that what they are, or who they are, I should say. So some cool stuff. I think my goal has been to look beyond the soccer field, right? Like, sure, that'll be part of it in these conversations, but ultimately think about the human side of the people that we interact. And I say that in loose terms, right? Like, I'll share one. My hope is to have, and we've been in communication trying to figure out a date, but Corey Rockwell, who is world renowned. He's done international matches left and right. He's done an incredible amount of work in the MLS, both as an assistant referee, VAR, etc. Just officially retired from international FIFA matches. So that's congratulations to Corey for his awesome career, which includes many, many tournaments. Getting him on the game and on behind a microphone and saying to him or asking him questions like, what was it like when the league first started, right? Like, what were you making, if you don't mind me asking? Or like, can you actually hear us or hear the fans from the stands? Does that sway your decision making? Like, walk us through this, because I think people who stand in section 140 or 136, 133, whatever, 101, wherever you want in the stadium, they don't think about who the people are who are making the decisions for their matches. So bringing some more, or I guess bringing him forward and giving him an opportunity to talk about his craft is sort of what I'm aiming to do. So some more conversations like that coming, but you can find me at Jose R. Nunez 91. I should know my own Twitter. Yeah, 91 on Twitter. And my YouTube channel, I think, is the same. No, it's youtube.com, Jose Nunez 1991. That is a gift for anyone who's a hacker. I just gave away my birth year. So if you're a hacker, you already know my birth year. You're one step ahead. So check out my stuff. I think you'll find some good in it in terms of content. But ultimately, thank you, Todd, for having me. It's always fun to chat. And like you said, we just came in blank and just shot off the hip. So I don't know how long it's been, but with me, it tends to run long. So I appreciate the time.
Yeah, over an hour for sure. I definitely could have cut this. And I was like, let's get one more topic in here. Let's talk about Olivier Mbaizo. And that's exactly what I decided to do. And now here we are, an hour and 6 minutes in. So you guys are like, shut up already. Like, come on, end the show. So yeah, if you guys aren't following.
We just made someone's drive more reasonable, right? They're not just sitting on 95 or 422.
Maybe you're flying out to LA, and so here's an hour of your trip gone.
Well, how long is that flight? Six
hours? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I done the Arizona one, and we had the tailwind going with us. So like, I think that was 4.5. That was fast. But I can't imagine 6. That was long.
It's gonna be long, right? At least I'm not flying Spirit, where you're packed in like sardines. So that's a good thing. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. If you guys haven't left a review yet on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, be sure to do that. It goes a long way. The YouTube channel, youtube.com/freekickpod, which we do have our top 10 goals from the 2023 Philadelphia Union MLS season. A lot of you guys have been watching that video, sharing the video, so I really, really appreciate that. And I can't wait to get back to making those videos on YouTube. But Jose, thanks again for coming onto the show. Hopefully you guys, the listeners, enjoyed us talking for almost an hour and 10 minutes. And hopefully this makes your day go by faster. And I can't wait for you guys to listen to the conversations that are going to be had at the United Soccer Convention. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.